It's time for the Car Doctor on AM 950 WROL. Got a car question? Call us at 617-770-3030. That's 617-770-3030. Now, here's the Car Doctor, John Paul, on AM 950 WROL, the spirit of Boston.
And good Saturday morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the spirit of Boston, or maybe you're listening on 100.3 FM, or maybe you're listening on the app, or WROLradio.com. Whichever way you're listening, well, I thank you for listening. And, of course, you can always find previous programs on my podcast site, which is johnfpaul.podbean.com. And somebody asked me for a list of all the places the program aired last week. And, iTunes or whatever it's called, Apple something now. What is it called? Apple something, right?
I have no idea. I've been so busy
with your life.
Yeah, with my life, too.
Yeah. Speaking of people with busy lives, sometimes when you have a really busy life, you want to be able to relax a little bit. And, some people play golf. Some people play tennis. Some people jog. And then some people go drive cars really fast around racetracks. And with us on the phone is Fred Ferguson. He is the CEO of Palmer Motorsports. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, John Paul. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I was saying that, some people to relax go out and play golf, and some people go play tennis, and some people go for long runs in the woods, and other times they go really fast around racetracks, right?
That's true. They enjoy the thrill and the skill involved in that hobby.
And Palmer Motorsport Park, how many years have you guys been in existence out in Palmer?
Well, we opened in 2015, but the track was originally conceived and permitted in 2007. So we've only been open since 2015, but it's been on the drawing board for over 10 years.
And was this your idea? Was it a kind of group thought? How did it come? Did you just decide, hey, there's a big hill that looks like I could carve roads in it and turn it into a racetrack? How'd that work?
No, the Sports Car Club of New England was looking for a venue. They have 5,000 members or so across New England, and they were afraid of losing the other facilities up at Loudon, New Hampshire, and Lime Rock, Connecticut. So this is back in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. They formed a committee to look for a site that they would be able to build a track to support their own amateur member events. And they found this piece of land in Palmer that was hit all the right requirements, and the town was supportive. So they got a permit, and the idea was for this to be owned and operated by an entity that would serve the amateur grassroots motorsports community. And I got involved in 2007 just as a passive investor. But then later I took on a much more active role in getting it off the ground. And so it had its roots in the sports car community from the get-go. And that's pretty much what it's still designed for. We do other types of events, but we're really there to support the motorsports community.
And your background, are you a racer, an investor, an enthusiast, or just somebody who said, I think it's just a good idea?
All of the above. I should probably have my head examined for the last one. I got into racing. I was in my late 30s and high tech. My business background is publishing and education and computers. And but I'd done some investing, and I'd gone through the Skip Barber Racing School, gotten a license, and been racing in the BMW Club and Sports Car Club of America. I got to be an instructor with some clubs. And so I understood the passion people have for automobiles and racing and driving. And I was in a position in my life where everything kind of came together, and the opportunity was, this is back in 2012, to kind of push this thing forward. And I just agreed to take a look at it. And just the pieces kept falling into place. It almost had a life of its own, really. And here we are. So nobody really knew what the track would be like. Well, maybe somebody did, but none of us who were directly involved, until we cleared the trees and got a real look at the site, the topology, did we realize what a dramatic circuit it would end up being.
Yeah, it really is. And for people who maybe think they heard of Palmer Motorsports, 2 weeks ago, I think on Chronicle, the track was featured. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done since we opened, we've gone out of our way to try to host other kinds of events to support various causes or interests. So the veterans event was a big one, and then the MIT or the electric vehicle research that's going on around a lot of the institutions, education. We will make our venue available to them and to help them debug or test out their latest developments in car technology. And that's been really fascinating to be part of. And but giving back to the community has been something that I think, as a racetrack operator, we're going to be constantly looking to do that, because we understand not everyone loves having a racetrack in their town and within earshot. And so we're trying to find as many ways as possible to justify our existence and benefit to the neighbors and the communities.
Yeah, I think down in Connecticut at Lime Rock, they can't run on Sunday because somebody doesn't like the noise on Sunday. And I guess over the years they've just sort of respected that and said, well, okay, if we're gonna coexist together, that's what we'll do.
Yes, Lime Rock. I mean, a lot of these tracks opened up, decades, the last century, and they've had kind of a difficult relationship as the communities around the town or the track have become more affluent and suburbanized. It creates a kind of give and take, but they had the benefit of being there for such a long time. But they do quite a bit themselves with the local Lakeville. There's a place for disabled children, and they do not run on Sundays, which is something that they agreed to many years ago. In return for, they do run some very loud televised events, and that sort of helps keep the doors open. Yeah, and I think they give back to the community as best they can, as much as their finances allow. Yeah,
no, and before we get into how you keep the doors open, let's talk about the track a little bit. I was fortunate enough. One of your guys, Al Sandy, took me out around the track, just kind of slow to get a feel of the track. Myself and Craig Fitzgerald, who works for Gatehouse Media, went out, and then we went out with one of your part-time instructors, full-time enthusiast, Mark, in his hot rod Mustang, and went around, did some hot laps around the track. It is, and I'm not a big racer. I have been up to Monticello, and I have been down to Lime Rock, and I have been to Road Atlanta. I don't know that I've ever been on a track that had elevation changes quite like yours.
No, it's definitely there's a track in Austria, Spa-Francorchamps, that comes close to that kind of elevation. It's literally built on a mountain. It was primarily the topology of the site dictated the the layout in trying to get a long enough circuit you needed to, and Whiskey Hill is got some terrain, elevation, and in the end, it did turn out to be very dramatic, much more so than I think many of us realized. And also the sight lines you get from around the circuit once the trees were opened up was stunning. I had no idea you could see so far out to the west and south and north as you can. See Mount Greylock actually from the top, and then you can see Connecticut and Monadnock and up in New Hampshire. It is just unbelievable, pretty. In terms of central Massachusetts, I can't say I spent a lot of time in that part of the state until I got involved in this project, and I've gotten to really love the area.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful area, and you're nicely located between Boston and Connecticut, and not all that far away from New York.
No, in fact, a lot of our members and clubs that run out of Palmer, the commute up to Massachusetts, that part of Massachusetts, is doable. It's somewhat easier than trying to fight traffic to go in other directions. And we're right off the pike. It is centrally, when we did the business plan, we drew a circle and looked at the population density and the people of owning sports cars, and it looked to be from a regional perspective an excellent location to be situated, and that was part of the whole economic crunching the numbers to make sure that whatever was built, it is only open for a partial 200 days out of the season, so we had to make sure, and that it again caters to the amateur grassroots enthusiast. So the numbers had to work for what people would be willing to pay and how far they're willing to drive. And the venue itself had to be interesting enough that they'd want to keep coming back.
Yeah, when I was out with Mark in his Mustang, one of my questions to him was, how long will this stay fun? And is it one of those things that, whether it's any kind of sport you're in, it starts to become a little less fun if you kind of go in the other direction of not getting better? And he said, absolutely. He says, I get to come out here, I get to do what I love, and as long as I see a little incremental change in myself or the car every time, he said, I'm always encouraged to come back.
And yeah, that's one of the things about when I first got into the sport, I thought I was a pretty good driver. I've driven my whole life, and I get out on the racetrack and realize it's a whole nother level of skill involved. And as I've progressed in the sport, it becomes more of a thinking man's game than it is. The adrenaline kind of goes into the background, and the degree of finesse that's involved in keeping a car, at optimal speed throughout an entire lap after lap, demands more of a person's focus and just finesse than it does brute courage or strength. And that was one of the elements. And if you get into racing, a whole other set of character traits get challenged in terms of one's competitive side and integrity and all the elements that go into racing. That is also something I didn't bargain on when I first got introduced to this hobby. But yeah, the track, I think this track was built to be challenging. It's not, I wouldn't say, a beginner slope type track for people just starting out. I mean, you can do okay, but it's designed to be very technically challenging, and to drive it well will take somebody, at least someone with my skill level, or thereabouts, a fair amount of time before they're really going to feel like they've got a handle on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was fortunate enough to get there early during one of the classroom sessions before people went out. And the folks sitting in the classroom, I want to say, ranged everything from there was a girl with her dad in a pretty nicely. I saw them later in a WRX, and Craig, who I was with, is also the editor of the Subaru Performance magazine, and he ended up making a story out of meeting them while he was out there. So it actually worked out kind of nice. But the age groups went from late teenage years to people in their 60s.
Oh, sure. Yep. I was kind of late to the game. I mean, you see kids. We've had parents that wanted to bring their 14-year-old children out who are licensed competitors. I mean, these kids, start out in go-karting when they're 8 years old or 7 or some crazy youth. But I was at Lime Rock when Paul Newman was still around, and he was, I think, 82, 83.
Yep.
And he was still competing a GT. He had a GT1, I don't know what it was, Camaro or something. And he was, in his early 80s and struggling with cancer. But he was one of the guys, he got into it late himself. I think he was in his 40s before he was making one of those movies. And anyway, it attracts a huge range of ages and backgrounds.
Well, speaking of how do you keep the doors open, how do you join? What's it cost? Is it a per day, per year? Is it initiation? Is it like joining a upscale golf course? How's it work?
Yes, we're trying to serve two different markets.
Okay.
The car club, we rent the place out like you would rent a banquet facility to a group that wants to come in, and they deal with their own schedule and event management. And then we also have a membership club, like a private golf course or country club, and you can join. The initiation fee is about $9,000 now. It's gone up a little, and it gives you exclusive access for a certain number of days every year. At the higher level of membership, which is, I don't know, $22,000, you get more dates, more guest passes, and on these days, we basically restrict it to members, and they get full use of the facility and we offer many days throughout the season for them to come out and when they feel like it and use the place. And we have dinners and other social events that we try to organize. But it's really for people who want to drive their cars at their own pace and on their own schedule. So the membership thing has worked out pretty well for those people for whom this kind of flexibility and use is affordable and attractive. And the club model is mostly on the weekends, and it's because they'll bring in many more people, it is more affordable per person than joining. And people tend to want to, like skiing or golf, they're going to want to go to multiple venues, and that we are just one of the venues on. New England has a fair number of racetracks, and so but we're hoping that we can be the home track to a lot of the groups that are headquartered out of the Boston area.
Yeah, no, and it's not. You throw out 9,000 and 22,000. 22,000 sounds like a lot of money, but Al was saying to me that it was actually. You could actually transfer that membership once you own it,
and that gives them over 30 days a year. If you plan to use it a lot and run the numbers, if you belong to any racing or car club, you realize going to the track is at least a few $100s. So if you're getting 30 days a year and you're using anywhere 20 of them, say, and the dues. So that's a one-time fee. The annual dues are much less. And so the price becomes a lot more attractive the more you... And we do want members that intend to use their membership. We're not looking just... I mean, I guess some people like to say they're a member of someplace.
Yeah.
And that has a certain cachet. But no, we're really interested in the guys who are intending to drive and love driving. It's part of the reason we're here.
No, and you have future plans too. I mean, right now you have a little bit of a small storage facility that people can leave their cars on site, and you have you had a pretty good food truck when I was there, by the way. The classroom space. But over time, you guys want to try to expand that a little bit too, right?
Oh, definitely. The infrastructure will build out. We're trying to generate enough cash flow from the business to or outside interest to warrant the building of more substantial people like to store their cars at the track and have it available to them when they come out. It's a good location for if you have a vehicle that you use for driving on our track or other tracks, to have a place that you can house it in your trailer. So these facilities, while part of the plan, weren't in the budget. Once building a racetrack is pretty expensive and daunting, just getting it off the ground. And so the idea was to let's establish ourselves financially, pay down some of the debt, and then look at expansion. And I think a restaurant, I've been told by the bank appraisers that it would be an ideal site if we could put a restaurant up there, but we're not really permitted. We're not really permitted for that. I'm not sure getting a restaurant open is high up on my list, but it is a nice place, and I think it will. The market tends to point you in the direction you need to go by people kind of vote with their wallet, and so we're being attentive to what what's the market's expecting and looking for, and to the extent we can accommodate it, we'll do that.
Yeah, the storage facility idea sounds like a good idea, because I know I was talking to somebody one time, and they were telling me that behind Ernie Bach's Ferrari dealership, there's a kind of nondescript building, and that's a storage facility for people who buy Ferraris and don't necessarily want to take them home. So they just store them there and come down and use them when they want and put them away. So the idea that you could have a performance car that is tucked away in a storage facility, go up and use it on the track, and maybe drive around the area a little bit, come back, put it away, and know it's always there and it's secure, and it's kind of out of your way at home. It's the same idea. It sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, it's the equivalent of boarding your horse at a place that you ride it all the time. And we have actually taken our rental garages and leased out more than half of it now to people who want to do just as you're saying, store their vehicle. And it's very convenient. And most of these people, these are cars that people don't drive as a daily driver. Right. So they don't need it to be parked in their basement or garage most of the time. Yeah. So it's been, the automotive world is still very much alive, and it's changing a lot with, technology and such. But as long as people are still enthralled with the open road and speed, I think racetracks and the hobby of cars will continue for a very long, at least to my lifetime.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Every time I hear somebody say that kids today don't have the same interest in cars, and I was at a little car show a couple weeks ago, and there was probably a kid. He was probably 13 or 14, and he was sitting in a Miata, and I went over and talked to him, and his dad was there. And they have been, it was a Gen 1 Miata, and they have been working on this car together for about 3 years. And all this kid wants to do is just get old enough to get a driver's license so he can drive it. And when I hear those kind of things and I hear those kind of stories, it still gives me some encouragement that there are always going to be those, that interest in motorsports and interest in kind of what's happening, and it seems to work. So, your track is just one of those unique venues where, people can come out and they can join. And like you said, you can either join, through a car club organization or your own membership, and go out and have a good time in a safe environment with other people that have that share your same level of safety, and but yet you can go out and drive as fast or as slow as you feel comfortable. Yes,
and for somebody who myself got a lot of speeding tickets in my youth, It's better to do this sort of thing in a closed circuit where it's intended to keep you from getting in trouble than out on the public roads.
So if you average out the speeding tickets and the insurance surcharge, this is cheap.
Oh, it's very it's and it's more rewarding in the end. I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I saw this guy in the Subaru with his daughter, and he was sitting on a lawn chair in the back of his trailer watching his daughter go around the track, and he looked as happy as can be, and even to the point where when the car came in, it was making a little ticking noise coming from one of the front wheels, but he was still as happy as can be. Yeah. No,
it's half the fun is driving it, and the other half is fixing it.
Yeah.
I guess for some people anyway.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. If people want more information about Palmer Motorsports, and it's a little confusing because it's Palmer Motorsports and it's Whiskey Hill Racing, right?
We decided to name the track, the circuit, after the hill that it's built on, Whiskey Hill. And yes, Palmer Motorsports Park it's kind of a mouthful. But that was the name that was given to it by the previous group. Yep. And so we just stuck with it.
Yep. No, and so if people want more information, the website is something like that?
Palmer Motorsport. Yeah, Palmer Motorsport. You can just Google Palmer Motorsports Park.
Yep.
And it'll take you right there.
No, it's a fantastic venue. And do you ever, is there ever a time where you just kind of, people are interested and they can just come out and kind of hang out for a little while and watch the cars go around? Or do you have to be a member?
No, you can. Any of the dates that we're running a school or a lapping day, people are welcome to come and poke around. And certain clubs, when they're at the Sports Car Club of America, Tony's Track Days, the Com Sports, some of these sports car clubs are very open to having non-members sign the waiver. They're free to poke around the cars, ask questions, and watch whatever is going on the track. So it's up to but we're renting it out to these groups, and it's really their policy as far as guests coming in.
Yeah, no, the Com Club, which I think was it Corvettes of Massachusetts or something.
Yes.
They seem very open to talking with people, and for people who have an interest in racing or Corvettes, or there's no better way to learn something and talk to people that are doing it, and whether it's going to a car show and you're interested in buying a car, or you're interested in a little bit of amateur racing. Fred, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your Saturday morning and joining us and talking about the track.
Well, thank you, Jean Paul. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
All right. Take care now. Okay. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Fred Ferguson, the CEO of Palmer Motorsports Park, Whiskey Hill Racing. I kind of like that name. I kind of like the Whiskey Hill name.
Whiskey Hill Racing.
Yeah, it sounds kind of cool, yeah. And you go up there, you go watch cars go around a little bit, and there's no grandstands. You just kind of stand and watch them. And then you go to Old Sturbridge Village or something. It's sort of in that area. If you don't know where Palmer is, because I didn't, it's off the Pike or off of 495 out to the Mass Pike kind of thing. Probably if you were at Wrentham Village Outlets, for instance, as a landmark. Probably 40 minutes from there. So pretty easy to get to from where we are here, probably closer to 80 miles maybe from the station here to Palmer. So you look like you're doing calculations.
No, I'm trying to figure out something. No, it's not calculation. I'm trying to research something.
Oh, do math?
No math.
Okay, all
research
right.
something.
All right, well, why don't we take a break?
Okay.
How about that? And you can do all the research you want. We'll come back and we'll find out what you're researching. My name is John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. Give us a call at 617-770-3030, 617-770-3030. We'll be right back.
There's only one car that I need. It's fitted, comforted, built to speed. American classic. a 56 Chevy. Had the rocket been a ride with a custom paint. Chopped it low and drives like a scene.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the Spirit of Boston. We'll be doing trivia a little bit later, and also a couple follow-ups of trivia from last week. Peter from Yarmouth was kind of half joking about the fact that he was looking for an old-time compression tester. And another one of our listeners from Lynn, she has a compression tester. So she said, Peter can have my compression tester if he wants it. So in the winning envelope was the contact information for her. So I don't want to give out her name because, maybe everybody's going to call her and say, can I get your compression tester? But so Peter, so you might have a compression tester. Because I didn't even look to see if I had one. And I don't think I do. I think I gave it away to somebody who had low compression. They needed to test it. So anyway, a new study came out from the folks over at iccars.com. According to a recent Wall Street Journal report, auto dealers have an unusually high number of new cars from the previous model year in inventory, which reflects maybe a little bit of the cooling of the U.S. auto market. A new IC Cars study examined 2 million new vehicles for sale, determined which vehicles have the highest amount of 2018 inventory as their 2020 models are being introduced. These vehicles provide great opportunities for shoppers to get a good deal on a new vehicle because the auto dealers will want to move them out of their inventory. Although you have to be a little careful. Tires still flat spot a little bit. So if they've been sitting in one spot for 2 years, tires might be a little bit noisy. IC Cars found that only 4% of the average new cars inventory from 2018 model year are still around. However, several vehicles have much more inventory from the 2018 model year available. And these vehicles that have introduced the 2020 inventory. So here's the most for sale. If you want to buy a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, they have almost 20% of their inventory is still for sale. A little bit less of the regular Wrangler, about 16. The Porsche Macans, should you want to buy one. Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, which I have yet to drive. Dodge Durango, Chrysler Pacifica, Chevy Malibu, Ford EcoSport, Jeep Compass, and Kia Optima. Those are all vehicles that are 2018s that are still in inventory, that maybe there's some good deals out there, and maybe some dealers want to try to move those cars off their lots. So if you're thinking Jeep Wrangler or Wrangler Limited, maybe you can get a good deal. Volkswagen said Friday it's recalling 679,000 U.S. vehicles sold since 2011 that could roll away because of an electrical issue. The recall covers the Jetta, Beetle convertible, Golf Sport Wagon, and GTI from various model years from 11 to 19. For its to be included in the recall, the vehicle must be equipped with an automatic transmission, manual handbrake, and no keyless entry. I think that's mine. Well, I have keyless entry, though. I don't have keyless start, which would make more sense. But the vast majority of the cars that are being recalled are Jettas at almost 499,000 and Beetles at about 100,000. The automaker said dealers may be able to remove the key after stopping without placing the car in park, which increases the risk the vehicle could roll away. Leaving the car in gear or in neutral with nothing there to stop it would certainly be a cause from concern, according to this article. Volkswagen said a buildup of silicate on the shift lever micro switch contacts is to blame. Here's the actual specific models. 2012 to 2019 Beetle, only about 65,000. Beetle convertibles, 12 to 19, 28,000. Again, it says without keyless entry. I thought every one of those had keyless entry, so I'm not sure what they're talking about. Golfs from 2015, a handful of those. Golf Sport Wagon, a car I really like, actually. And, of course, the Jetta, the plain old-fashioned Jetta, 11 to 2018, $541,000. Dealers will install with an additional switch and circuit board to disable the micro switch at the shift lever. Volkswagen said there's no reports of injury. Sounds kind of weird. In a few short months, Harley-Davidson's lineup shifted from 0 electric offerings to having 3 battery-powered two-wheelers for 3 different age groups. Well, sort of. The Harley-Davidson Livewire is a real Harley-Davidson full-size motorcycle, but they also launched something called the Iron. I'm not even going to try. IRONE 12, IRONE 16, 2 battery-powered electric bicycles for kids between the ages of 3 and 7. Harley-Davidson used X Games Minneapolis early this month to unveil 2 products that hopes will instill the love of riding in a younger generation. Both the 12 and 16 are basically pedal bicycles with swappable lithium-ion batteries attached. Each bike has 3 drive modes: training, standard, and advanced. Training keeps the top speed to 5 miles an hour. Standard tops out at 7, and advanced allows up to 9 miles an hour, 11 on the 16. Equipped with aluminum frames, the bikes weigh about 16 to 19 pounds. And you can buy a Harley bicycle for kids for about $700. So I guess if you're really interested in one of those, you can go out and buy one. The other Volkswagen news, which is the most unnewsy news I've heard, is Volkswagen's going to change their logo.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, and they're not. But it made headlines, which I don't... It said Volkswagen... it looks like the automotive world is finally getting on that design trend as well. Specifically, Volkswagen is changing its logo, moving away from the bubble-like blue and white VW sign to a simple flat black and white logo. So that little kind of little curvy blue and white, they're doing away with it and making it flat and black and white.
Okay.
Why? And why make news about that? And I'm just as bad because I'm talking about it. But that isn't to say the new logo hasn't been out in the wild at all. It's been used on a new Hello Light ad campaign as well as on some prototypes. But the first production to get it will likely be the new Golf. While one manufacturer changing the logo doesn't make for a pattern, 2 manufacturers would like at least to start. Is where Lotus comes in, if you ever see a Lotus. And here's what I miss. And I was at, last Saturday, I was down the Cape for a little while, and I went to a little car show. And this Thursday evening, I was coming home from work, and I got off because traffic was kind of heavy. And I was driving on 138 by the old Raynham Dog Track, and there's a car show there every other Thursday night. So it was about, 6 o'clock. So I swung in to see what was going on at the car show. And what I really miss is script writing on the side of cars and names. Something like, a BMW 325 actually kind of meant something when it actually meant that it was a 2.5-liter engine. Now it really doesn't mean anything because it could be a 2-liter engine with a turbocharger, a 2-liter engine without a turbocharger. They have different names. The names don't necessarily coincide with. But I miss some of the script writing that's used to be on the side of cars where the letters connected together. I don't know. It was kind of a classic look, and I kind of liked it. And now you don't see it. And the idea of Volkswagen doing something like, we're going to change our logo from bubble-shaped to flat black and white, black and silver, whatever color it is. Just, if you're going to change it to something interesting. That's what I have to say. Speaking of people that always have something to say, our buddy Rick's on the phone. Rick, is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, what's up?
Well, last week you mentioned that Carvana was making just over $3,000 in profit for
per vehicle
each car they sell. And what's the average profit for a car? Now, I know a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari would probably have a bigger markup margin than a Cooper or a Fiat, but what are they average at?
It can be just pure profit. It can be anywhere from nothing to $3,000 or $4,000. Car dealers make more on the accessories of the sale, things like wheel and tire insurance, key fob insurance, gap coverage for insurance, than sometimes they do on the actual sale of the car. And that sometimes is what is where the profit is more than the car. But I remember talking to a car dealer a bunch of years ago, and he bought a bunch of 1-year-old fleet cars. And I think these happen to be Buicks. And he said to me, I'll tell you, he said, we make $1,000 per car when we sell them. And he said, there's some new cars we don't make $1,000 per car. Now, granted, at the end of the year, there may be incentives for how many cars get sold. Obviously, you can't be a David Rosenberg with his Prime dealerships or Herb Chambers or Danny Quirk and building these big dealerships and not make any money on car sales because the shop doesn't make up for it either. Even though the shop now has to absorb a lot more of the expenses of the operation than he used to. But yeah, I would be willing to bet that most new car dealers, if they made $3,000 per car, would be extraordinarily happy.
Okay, just curiosity came to my mind afterwards on that.
Yeah. No, and something like a Land Rover, a Rolls Royce, a Ferrari, they make a lot of money per vehicle because they don't sell a lot of cars. So you go buy a Rolls Royce or a Bentley dealer, and if they're how many of those are they really going to sell each month?
Yeah,
it's more like how many they're going to really sell each year. They're not going to sell a lot. So there's money to be made there. And then you have to look at expenses. Out in New York, for instance, Mercedes of Manhattan is actually owned by Mercedes because a Mercedes dealer can't afford to keep a dealership in Manhattan because the costs are so expensive. So that's a dealership that sort of loses money all the time because they want to have that presence in a big city. But, hey, Rick, you're beeping.
No, I was just doing something in my car.
Yeah. So as long as it wasn't like as long as it wasn't your battery running out,
No, actually, what it is that I'm in a parking lot because I got to pick up stuff at a store.
There you go.
And in my car, so I just rolled up the window.
There you go. That's
make it a little quieter.
That's all right. We appreciate that. So so that's just. I would say that's the story. When it comes to car profit, I would say that's probably probably realistic. Like I said, when I bought my little Hyundai Santa Fe last year, they actually lost $1,000 when they sold it to me, but they also made $4,000 on the car that the car that sold right before mine. So, and it wasn't it wasn't because I was a great negotiator. I went in with the auto buying program that AAA has, which is, I'll tell you a little secret, which is really nothing more than TrueCar with our name on it. And because I didn't go with any of the other stuff, they actually lost money on the sale. So,
well,
and then again, they went out of business.
Side note in today.
Yep.
Yesterday, I was on my motorcycle early, around 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It was still sprinkling a little bit, and people were actually giving me less courtesy on the road than they did earlier in the week when it was dry out.
Wow.
And, because the road was still wet, and there's a little mist coming down on that. Hey guys, if a motorcycle is taking it easy, especially if the weather's a little on the bad side, give them a break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Makes all kinds of sense.
Not to the people behind me.
Hey, Rick, always good talking to you.
Have a good one, John. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's talk to Richard from Whitman. Richard?
Hey,
good
morning, Car Doctor.
How are you?
Good morning. Listen, just give me a second here. I need to pull over. I thought you were going to be holding me up. I don't like to talk on the phone.
Well, we
right.
appreciate that. So don't talk on the phone. I'll talk to Dennis.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Dennis for a minute.
No,
you tell me when you're ready.
No. I'm fine.
Oh.
I'm fine. I just pulled into a side street.
All right.
All right. So listen, this is what happened. I had the compressor replaced on my air conditioner in the car in a 2013 Nissan Altima.
Okay.
All right. I had it replaced at 70,000 miles. So a little over 70,000 on the 17th of last month, July.
Mm-hmm.
All right. A couple of days ago, Thursday actually, I had the condenser replaced.
Okay.
On the same car.
All right.
Wouldn't it seem like they should have spotted the leaking condenser at the same time that they fixed the compressor? I'm out of words.
Yeah, I would now. Let's start from the beginning here. Why did you bring it in when the air conditioner didn't work back then? What was it? Was it just that it didn't work?
Right. All right. Go back a month into June.
Okay.
And I was getting little or no AC out of it. So I went into the dealer for a recharge.
Mm-hmm.
They recharged it.
Mm-hmm.
Within a couple of weeks, I was back to getting no AC.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very minimum.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I went back to them and I said, listen, there's something else wrong, and it didn't just need a recharge. So they didn't pick up on the fact that the compressor was bad when they did the recharge. But he you know that blah, 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 yada, yada, yada thing they give you about they put a machine on it, and the machine tells them how much to put in and so forth and so on. All right. So I'm out that $100 for the first
recharge.
They're not going to. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they put the new compressor in on the 17th of July, and at that time everything was fine for a couple of weeks
until it all leaked out.
I was getting not as much AC as you would expect, but I was getting some AC. Then it started getting worse and worse and worse to the point where I was sweltering in the car. So I went back to them a couple of days ago, Thursday, as a matter of fact. I went back to them Thursday, and I said, there's something else wrong with this car. I'm not getting any air conditioning. So the guy comes back to me a few minutes later, and he says, it's the condenser. Okay. So I said, why wasn't that picked up at the time that the compressor, if it was indeed the compressor that was wrong? And he said, well, and he went through that yada, yada, blah, blah, blah thing, that they go through. They're very good at it. Things are happening, and yes. But so, anyways, does that seem like too much of a coincidence that both of them would?
I'm kind of thinking the condenser was a problem right from the very beginning.
Strangely enough,
it's odd that a condenser. It's odd that a compressor. I mean, compressors will leak. There's no question about it.
And he said something about. I'm sorry, an O-ring.
Yeah,
an O-ring that needed to be replaced also at the first one.
Yeah,
at the compressor.
Yeah.
Right, so go ahead.
Could there have been a tiny little leak? First off, when you brought it in and it wasn't working the first time, and they added refrigerant to it, they should have added refrigerant and a dye, because it obviously leaked out of somewhere. So they should have added something to it to try to figure out, and then gone and tested the system to see where there was a leak. And then if they said, you know what, we spent about 15 minutes looking for a leak, it's got to be so small that it's just impossible to find. But then when you came back a couple weeks later and it wasn't working, to jump to the compressor seems to me that wouldn't be the first place that I would expect to see a leak, because you expect to see leaks at the condenser, the evaporator, some of the lines, because that's where most of all the vibration and abuse takes place, especially the condenser. I mean, the condenser mounts in front of the radiator. It's subject to potholes and bumps, and can end up with a pinhole or a crack or corrosion or whatever the case is. So, at this point, now where are you with it? Can you go back to them and say, hey, look, I think you misdiagnosed it, and the idea and their story might be, if you came back to Honest Dennis's garage here and said hey, you put a compressor in my car and the AC doesn't work, and I said, well, let us take a look at it and go, yeah, you need a condenser because this new compressor puts out higher pressure, and it actually found a weak spot, and the weak spot was the condenser, and that's what the problem was.
You think for 1 second any dealership is going to agree to that?
No, but what I'm saying is that might have been their story. Their story might be, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't misdiagnose it. It was that condenser wasn't really leaking until we put this new compressor in, and the compressor, was working the way it should, and that's what blew a hole in the weak condenser. I don't know. I'm not buying that. My feeling is that it was a condenser all along, and the compressor was a misdiagnosis.
Or it could have been a combination of both.
I mean, it could. I mean, Dennis is right. Could it have been a combination of both? It could have been. But that isn't where I would have jumped to conclusions.
I'm in agreement. I think, and a friend of mine had something like this happen to him not too long ago, where they had to go through a series of issues, but the garage they went to, I can't remember where it was. They were like, oh, well, we replaced, just like you, they replaced the compressor first, and then the condenser, the compressor first, then the condenser went. So they just said, we'll just charge you for the condenser, and we're not going to charge you for the labor.
Yeah, I mean that would have been a very reasonable thing if you came into them and said, you know what, we're not sure. We'll take care of the recharge. We'll take care of the labor. You take care of the part, and you probably would have been happy with that, I would think.
I'd have been a lot happier than I am right now.
Yeah. Again, I'm
out $1,600.
Right.
It was just a little under $1,000 for the compressor, the original compressor.
Yep.
And then it was $615, $20.
Yep.
So $1,600 rounded out.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm sitting here with an air conditioner. It's not running right now, but the air conditioner is running fine. But for $1,600,
right?
Where it was either $600 or $1,000, one or the other. I'd have said the car's got 75,000 miles on it. Stuff happens,
right?
By the way, this is a Nissan now, 4-cylinder.
Yep.
My daughter bought a couple of years after I bought this one, so it's like a 2015 or 16, and she's got less than 50,000 miles on it, and her condenser went. Doesn't that seem odd?
It does. It does, but hers, I mean, it could have been anything. But, like I said from the very beginning, condensers are one of those things that are subject to a lot of abuse.
Right.
I on my own car a bunch of years ago, the car was probably I had to be older than that, 5 years old, and I backed into my driveway in a snowstorm, and I'm pretty convinced that there was enough snow and ice when I was backing up that it just shook the condenser just right and cracked it. And when I went to use the AC in the spring, I'm like, isn't working. And then I looked down and I could actually see oil leaking from the corner of the condenser, which is the lubricant that, swishes around inside the air conditioner. And, that's what it was. Was it because I backed up in the snow, or is it because I drove 50 miles home in ruts and it shook it around enough where it cracked it? Who knows? And that may have been on a newer car. And the other not to sound like everybody's father, they just don't make stuff the way they used to, and it's all made out of lightweight aluminum to try to save weight and save cost, and this stuff doesn't take the abuse the way it used to. So,
and also we live in New England, and not for nothing, but
I'll tell you honestly, I'm a few years older than you are. I know how old you are. You and Paul are the same age.
Yep.
You and Paul Sullivan are approximately the same age, and I've got about 8 years on you, so I'm no kid. I'm this is not my first car. This is not my first car, but I started buying new in 2003, and I bought this, and I'm very I'm happy
Yep.
with this car. Right up until then, everything else that happened to the car was brakes and was just routine drivability things. But I just thanks for letting me get me. I'm not going to go. I'll go back. I'll go back to them and I'll say to them, listen, maybe there's this diagnosis here, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to give me any of my money back. I'd be.
I mean, and it's kind of hard.
They do, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard now because you paid for it, you agreed to pay for it, it's over. But still, would it hurt to go back and talk to the general manager or service manager and say, hey, look,
it won't hurt because
I kind of put the pieces together here, and it sounds like there's a good possibility you guys might have misdiagnosed it, and maybe what was the reason that the compressor was bad, and is there any chance that even maybe when you were disconnecting the lines that went to the compressor, did you damage the condenser somehow? It's like trying to find a leaky water pipe sometimes. You fix one and then another one springs a leak and another one does. And so is it possible? Yeah, but it's I think there's room for just some discussion with the dealership. How's that?
all right.
Okay.
Well, we'll do that.
All right.
Listen, one more quick thing.
Sure.
Just be quick. Several times you've mentioned that on the BMWs, the sounds of the car accelerating have come from the subwoofer as opposed to actually from the engine and the exhaust.
Yep.
Do people outside the car hear that sound?
No.
Or is it just something?
No. What happens in Europe, they have to have the sound ordinances in Europe are more strict than they are here. So what happens is, and some of them are a little bit loud, but so what happens to get the performance sound? They run it through the stereo system, and it sounds just like the engine accelerating. But when you're outside the car, it doesn't sound like anything. So it keeps the little old keeps the little old neighbors happy. So it doesn't make any noise, but it makes you feel like Mario Andretti.
Well, my analogy on this is it's like my 3-year-old grandson sits down with his toy cars and goes vroom vroom, right? I'm sure you've had small children in your life at one time or another who do exactly the same thing. They have some kind of a noise, and that's what it sounds like. Like the I'm not going to insult the person that owns the BMW, but the person is being, I won't say tricked because they have to know.
No, they're being tricked. They're being tricked. For the first couple of years, BMW didn't tell anybody. They were being tricked.
They're smart enough to have enough money to buy a BMW, but they're not smart enough to know when somebody's pulling the wool over their eyes.
Nobody said you're smart if you have money.
I understand that. Never mind.
But the other thing is too. Even Ford kind of did a little bit of trickery with one of their cars. They actually ran, I don't know what to call it, almost like a sound funnel inside the car. So when you accelerated, you would hear the whoop noise when you accelerated, but it was actually an air horn that went inside the car, so it sounded like that sound of air rushing into a intake, but it was actually just an echo chamber that came inside the car, so it sounded like you put your foot to the floor, which you were, but on the outside it didn't sound like anything. Yeah.
All right. I don't know.
All right.
Who dreams this stuff up?
People smarter than me. Hey, thanks for the call. Take care now.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's take a quick break. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. I promised that we would do trivia, and it's an anniversary trivia question, sort of, birthday trivia question, something like that. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. We will be right back.
Well, the other day I went out in my rig to some Saturday tracks that I heard was big. My rig is a big old Cadillac towing a big double A.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the Spirit of Boston. Well, it's sort of an anniversary of sorts. On August 13th, 1959, something happened. And it helped save lives. It was the three-point seatbelt. Which car got the first three-point seatbelt? If you know the answer to that.
I know the brand. I know the
Well,
car company.
okay. Well, which brand? Which brand?
Okay.
If you know the answer to that.
Exact model, I don't know.
Wow. We could do the model, too, but no. If you know what brand in 1959, August 13th of 1959, introduced the first three-point seatbelt, we will give you a prize of some kind.
And I also know that they gave the patent up for free. They didn't make any money on it.
Very Elon Musk-like of them. But anyway, so if you know what the answer to that is, we will give you something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm down to running out of stuff. So we'll give you our undying gratitude of a fantastic. Do you think you know the answer? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll give you something. We'll give you but we'll let Dennis answer the phones, and we'll let it. Maybe we'll use the random number generator to try to figure out. Yeah, randomizer, which I think I still have. So, yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff. So anyway, that was quick. Well, we'll do it just like they came in, I guess. So, let's talk to Peter in Salem. Peter?
Hey, hi, John, how are you?
Was it an Edsel?
No, but Ford did the safeguard safety belts in 1956. But,
But it wasn't a three-point belt.
No, I know. It was just a lap belt, and the people asked Ford to take them out because they sat on them.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to say a Corvette.
I'm going to say you're wrong.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Right, John.
So I'm going to say you're wrong. Sorry, Peter.
That's okay.
All right.
All right, thanks,
All right,
John.
take care. Yep,
Bye.
bye-bye. Go to Steve up in New Hampshire.
No, Salem, Mass.
Oh, Salem, Mass. Oh, okay. Sorry. We'll talk to Steve in Salem. Steve?
Yes, good morning, John.
Good morning.
I believe that it was in a Volvo.
I believe you are absolutely right. It wasn't a Volvo.
Wow.
So I'll tell you what. You stay right there. Dennis will take down your name and address, and we'll send you something.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a nice day.
You as well.
Right.
So there's a whole big story here about seatbelts. And it says, at the risk of sounding like your parents, an annoying public service announcement or naggy safety companion, wear a seatbelt whenever you're in the vehicle. Consider physics. When your vehicle slams into something, it rapidly decelerates. Bodies in motion tend to stay in motion. So if you're not strapped down, guess what? Your car, and there's actually three parts of a crash, as much more, or some graphic part that you don't need to know about, but there's three parts of a crash. Your car hits something, you hit something inside your car, and something inside of you moves around. So we'll use your head, for instance. So when you're in a crash, your car hits something, your body hits something, and then your brain bounces off the inside of your head. And it's that third part of the crash that generally does you in. And the same thing with internal organs and other stuff.
And all the accidents that I have had, I cannot.
We call them crashes.
Yeah. all the crashes that I have had, I cannot believe that I have never had a concussion or a real major injury.
Were you wearing your seatbelt?
Of course.
Yeah.
One, I will tell you, I wasn't initially wearing my seatbelt, and I was coming up over a hill, and something in my head said, "Hey, you're not wearing your seatbelt. You should probably put it on." I clicked it on.
Yeah.
10 seconds
10
later.
seconds later? Yeah,
Boom.
see? Just whenever you think that maybe there isn't some other force or something that watches over you. My only real I've been involved in a few crashes, but there was one I wasn't wearing my seatbelt a bunch of years ago, and that was the one that I got pretty badly banged up. Concussion, bruised spleen, compound fracture, broken hand, some contusions. Yeah, so slid off an icy road into I thought I was just going to drive up over a sidewalk and blow out a couple tires, and the tree stopped me.
They stopped you quick.
Yeah, it did. It did. So, but anyway, so, and I spent the night in the hospital. You know, it wasn't a great situation. So, but anyways, that's why you should always wear your seatbelt. But Volvo in the 50s had helped develop, oddly enough, ejection seats for aircraft. And this at the Swedish automaker, there was a guy, his last name was Bolin, and he was tasked with putting his specialized knowledge to use, taking his expertise about extreme forces of impact on the human body and focusing on keeping occupants inside a vehicle. Bolin believed that while Y-shaped seatbelts marked a step in the right direction in terms of adequately distributing crash forces over a wider area, it was equally important to ensure that those forces are distributed across strong areas of the body. So instead of running belts across occupant's body, he designed a belt pathway that crisscrosses the most robust pieces, the shoulder, chest, and pelvic bone. Belts and bones, that's the way it works. Seat belts work across, that's why they go across your hip and not your stomach, because your hips are where a really strong bone. That's why it goes across your collarbone, because your collarbone's really strong as opposed to your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... But
that's
that's a really strong bone. Your shoulder and your collarbones are really strong. That's why. So even Volvo only installed the 3-point belts in the front seats at first. It would take till 1967 for automakers to add them to rear seats. Volvo sold the first car ever with today's 3-point belts in place to a customer in Sweden on August 13th, 1959. First Volvo sold with belts were the PV 544, you know, the little funny-looking little Volvo, looks like an old antique American car. And only in Nordic countries. Volvo thus became the first car maker in the world to equip its car with safety belts as standard. After that, Volvo spent years convincing the rest of the auto industry that belts were valuable lifesavers. It put on numerous presentations with live-action crash dummy demonstrations and cited data and studies. Volvo even tracked down every crash involving its vehicles over 1 year in Sweden. 28,000 crashes in all. They're not good drivers, the Swedes, apparently, if they run. Seems like in that year, whatever that year. The 3-point belts, according to their estimation, help spare drivers and passengers death and reduced injuries by 50 to 60%. That's a number that still sticks around today, that seatbelts can reduce serious injuries and death by 60%. Add airbags into the mixture, it adds another 15 or 20%. So combination of airbags and seatbelts, you would think, would keep you ultimately safe until the point where it can't, because you're going too fast or whatever. Volvo claims that by next year, no one driving a 2020 Volvo will be involved in a fatal crash. I don't know how...
Well, you know, put that spray foam that was in Demolition Man in
the
car?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they say that between their automatic emergency braking systems, seatbelt systems, laminated glass, soft stuff around the inside of the car, somewhere on one of the old podcasts, I have a quote from the Volvo engineer who said that. So he didn't say when in 2020.
So we got a text.
Yep.
They have a 2019 Kia Sorento with a whopping 2,200 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting an error saying check blind spot collision warning, and it like kind of rapid fires on and off.
Mm-hmm.
The dealer's had it for 2 days now and can't diagnose the problem, although they know there is a problem. What do you know about it? Anything?
Nothing more than the dealer would know. There's a problem with the sensor wiring, something like that. It is it starts off with, well, let's check it and make sure it's not dirty. Go look at the sensors and make sure they're clean and not not acting up. The systems use a series of like computer wiring to connect back to the computer in the car. It could be some interference from there. I drove a Hyundai that would get a warning periodically that said front camera blocked. And I went over and looked at the front camera, and it wasn't blocked by anything. So I don't know what it said it was being blocked by. But so same kind of thing. So electrical interference, bad sensor. I'm surprised the dealer didn't start with testing and replacing the sensor first, rather than just saying, well, it's intermittent, we don't know what it is. But
I mean, it sounds like they're working on it. I mean, it's been 2 days.
2 days, yeah. Yeah, I mean, usually what they'll do, they'll start with calibration, and all of the advanced driver assistance systems have to be very specifically calibrated. So they need 75 or 100 feet of sort of space. They set markers out. They check everything to make sure it's all aimed and calibrated correctly. But my first thought would be somehow during installation a sensor got damaged, and it could very well be the sensor itself, which is purchased by the manufacturer. They could have just got a run of bad sensors, and maybe that's why I saw it in a Hyundai and he's seen it in a Kia. They're probably all bought by the same time and made by the same sensor manufacturer.
Could be.
Yeah. Why don't we take another break? Because I think we have to take one. Why don't we do that now? And if you would like to call us, our phone lines are open at 617-770-3030. When we come back, I want to talk about the Nissan Kicks. Kicks. What's a Kicks? Well, you find out when I come back. Or it's a pair of sneakers.
Could be.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
The story of the hot rod race with the Fords and the Lincolns was setting the pace. That story is true, I'm here to say I was driving that Model A. It's got a Lincoln motor and it's really souped up.
Little scoop, you don't know what I got. So don't put me down, but I've got the fastest set of wheels in town. When something comes up to me, he don't even try, 'cause if I had a set of wings, man, I know she could fly. She's my little scoop, you don't know what I got. Just a little scoop.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL. Well, the Nissan Kicks is not a pair of sneakers made by Nissan. Or a breakfast cereal. When did they start calling, like, cool-looking sneakers Kicks?
I was calling them Kicks when I was a kid, and I'm going to be 47 at the end of this year.
So I missed, like, several decades of Kicks. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, the Nissan Kicks is a front-wheel drive only subcompact SUV that seats 5. And is it really an SUV if it's front-wheel drive? Sure it is.
Yes.
Yeah, because,
if it was rear-wheel drive, I'd say I don't think so.
But it still could be.
But, I mean,
if it's a sport utility vehicle.
Yeah, but the part of the utility is so that it can get through harder terrain. So it would have to be
like the flat roads in Florida?
Or the snow in New England.
Yeah, but we're not the only, there's other parts of the country that nothing ever happens.
True.
Except it rains. Apparently, that's all it does in Florida right now is rain. But anyway, it's a subcompact SUV. It seats 5. It's powered by a 125 horsepower, 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine, a continually variable automatic transmission. Comes standard, as do a host of other features. The Kicks comes in 3 trim levels, S, SV, and SR, and we road tested the SV. The 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine, compared to other vehicles in its class, trails in horsepower, but manages to do more than an adequate job of getting the car up to highway speed, passing slow-moving vehicles, things like that. You do have to push all the way to the floor on the accelerator. Makes a little bit of noise, but pretty drama-free as things go. The CVT transmission does a good job of keeping relatively quiet, and only under hard acceleration does the combination of small engine and CVT get a bit raucous. During my time with the Kicks, fuel economy averaged, according to the onboard computer, about 36 miles per gallon. Overall ride and handling are slightly better than what you would expect in an economy car. The electric power steering is actually pretty good. The combination of tight turning radius makes the Kicks easy to pilot around city streets. The ride is smooth on all but the worst roads. The overall handling won't compete with a sports sedan, but presents no surprises in driving situations. Visibility is generally very good to the front and rear, but I did have to make some very careful mirror adjustments to fully eliminate blind spots to the side. Our test model did have blind spot warning as well as front collision warning systems. The interior of the Kicks is a bit of a mixed bag. There are some hard plastic surfaces, but overall the fit and finish is pretty good. The front seats, unlike other economy subcompacts, remained pretty comfortable even after a few hours behind the wheel. So I drove it quite a bit, and it was pretty good. I took it out to Devon's to do a presentation with a bunch of kids. Actually showed them how to change a flat tire. Use this vehicle as an example. Showed them how to check the oil. Use this vehicle as an example. Showed them how to check the power steering fluid. Oops, it doesn't have any because it's electric power steering. Tried to show them how to check the transmission fluid. Can't, sealed. It does have a dipstick, but they don't want you to take it out. They coat it with a plastic cover, so you can't put anything in there.
Then what's the point of the dipstick?
You break the seal off if you do need to actually check it or refill it because there's a leak. But auto manufacturers don't want you playing with their transmission fluid anymore. A lot of Toyota Camrys now, no dipstick at all. My own car, haven't even looked.
I'll say that when I was looking, before I got my replacement Rogue, I was taking a look at the Kicks. The only reason I really didn't get it is because of the subcompact size.
It is subcompact.
I mean, I could fit into it.
Yeah, I could see you fitting into it with decent headroom.
Absolutely. Anybody sitting behind me? No.
Not as much. Although a little bit of adjustment, you could put adults back there. Fold the rear seats down. The cargo space actually got really good.
Yes.
I had to carry about 200 pounds of stuff one day, and I put a blanket back there so it would stay clean because it's not my car, so I have to be, so I tend to be a little extra fastidious, I guess, to make sure that nothing happens. I mean, when I get the cars, they come spotlessly clean, and I try to give them back spotlessly clean. Sometimes I'm even out there with my little cordless vacuum cleaner, vacuuming the beach sand out of them, so they stay clean. So I try to give them back as nice as I got them, and to the point of making sure that I always give the car a walk around, and somehow if there's a parking lot ding or dent, I always let the folks know so they know it happened on my watch. It does have something my car doesn't have. It has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I didn't think I would miss that. I kind of think I do miss Apple.
I haven't even tried it on mine yet.
Did you have it in your old one?
No.
I mean, it basically just mirrors your phone. So
for certain apps, not all apps.
Yeah,
like if you have Google apps, forget it.
It works pretty good with Google Maps.
On Apple Play?
Yeah,
really?
On Apple CarPlay. Yeah, that's what I tend to use. I use that more.
Yeah, I use Google Maps.
Yeah, yeah, and it works, and it works pretty good with Waze, which is also a Google Apps. Which I don't like Waze.
No,
I'm a Waze hater, because too many people, when traffic backs up, step on the brakes, slow down to look at their phone to see if there's an exit they have to take, and that backs traffic up for another mile. I have seen so many times this year traffic come to a complete stop, and I can see way ahead because where I'm positioned, and there's no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, technically it's called, well, I don't know how technical this is, it's called the turtle effect of traffic, where one person slows down, the next person behind them has to slow down a little more, the next person slows down a little bit more, and then all of a sudden...
Route 24 is notorious for it.
That's right. Turtle effect.
You can be going 85 miles an hour 1 second, which
Yep.
you should never be going that fast, but you can be.
You can be, you could be,
and
then
the next second
you're going zero. And then it's like, well, what happened? Nothing happened.
And then you sit there for a few seconds,
Yep.
and then you're going
Yep.
85 miles an hour again.
Yeah, and that's because all it takes is one person to dump their coffee over, look at their phone, or look at Waze. And I'm convinced that some people are, and especially where Waze lets you enter in information while you're driving, so you can put, cop ahead or something. It just causes more problems. So bottom line, the Kicks is friendly, fun-to-drive subcompact SUV that's comfortable, competent, and returns very good fuel economy. If you can live without all-wheel drive and knowing you don't have the quickest car on the block, the Kicks by Nissan is a good choice. 4-cylinder engine, 31 city, 38 highway, prices tested $21,630. So in the world of
not bad
economy, pretty good. Hey, Sully's over there just hanging out.
I'm way over here.
Over there. What are you doing way over there?
It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
I have access to all the things that I need to make a really, really, really smooth transition.
Do I look any better from over there?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Unquestionably.
That because your vision's not as good? You're further away?
Well, you get a nice haircut.
No, I'm actually going to go get a haircut.
No, don't. You look good.
No,
the color's good. The lights coming.
The lights
on
good.
Right.
Yeah.
You look great.
Maybe I don't need those lenses over the lights to give me a little bit more color.
That's why the Lord makes your vision go when you're
what it is, yeah.
so you look better.
So what's up for the Irish Hit Parade? You took last week off because your back was bothering you.
It's funny. I was talking to Bobby Brooks, and I said, "Any way you can come in?" This is last week. And he said, "What's up?" And I said, "Well, I went to the doctor, and I finally, after I've had a bad back for decades, and actually I had surgery."
How long you had a week back?
Well, about a week back.
Yeah.
You can't sneak that one by me. Come on.
I know.
But I had surgery back in the year 2000, and that's about 20 years ago now. So the doctor back then said you might have some symptomology in 15 years or so. So I beat that clock. But I had an MRI, and it came back with every osis and itis you can think of. So maybe there's something we can do about it, and maybe I just have to be able to
take 2 more Advil and
Well, the thing about that is I can't take that because of the stomach. So
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, Bobby Brooks is a
stenosis is the thing.
That's what I got. Yeah. That's one of them anyway.
That's one of them.
I learned a new word, and I know a lot of words. You know that.
I know you do.
But I learned the word foraminal. Foraminal.
Is it with
F-O-R-M-A?
I was thinking it was with a PH.
No.
All right.
But I don't even know what it is, except mine is narrowed.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I hate that.
No, which means apparently the nerves have to go through the foraminal channels, and once they get narrowed, the nerves get pinched, and that impacts your pain threshold plus your ability to maintain balance and walk properly.
I hate that.
I'm a wreck. But luckily, here to do my job, I sit and push buttons.
You sit, push buttons, and you play the very best in Irish music.
Right. Well, I peruse the library, which now is all digital, which helps me a lot. Look at Dennis going like this. What's that mean?
It doesn't mean anything.
It means hurry up, doesn't it? All right, I'm hurrying. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Hey, it's good to see you guys. I love you guys.
It's good to be here. Till next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.
These are the songs you love so well. I know that because it's been my privilege to have played them for you since 1982. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Sullivan, and I